JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. April 8th, 2024. Apologize for that. I was trying to get on there. I'm just going to talk really quick. I put up some of the links. I did the week ahead webinar last night, so if you haven't seen that, check it out. A lot of the stuff I talk about is regurgitated, so I don't want to just talk about the same stuff over and over. But talk really quick. I added some stars calls, constellation brands. I call in my head I have the ticker. Pretty much in the beverage side, so alcohol, things like that, but they also have a little piece of CGC. I'll talk about that in a minute. AVAV, I'm eyeing some calls here, and take a look where it's sold off from its earnings. I think there's an opportunity there. Talk quick about DELL, Intuitivesurgical, the other cannabis names, GLP-1, and go from there. But first, we'll talk about the markets. Take a look at the S&P. Another one of those tight trading ranges. We hit a high of 520.18, a low of 517.90, so pretty much a $2 trading range on a SPY. So 0.4%. That's pretty tight range there. It's pretty much what happened 2 weeks ago. So we'll see if this holds up. The big data pieces this week, we have the CPI data 8:30 on Wednesday morning. Then we also have the Fed minutes 2 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. And then the Q1 earnings season kicks off in earnest with the banks on Friday. There are still earnings this week, but technically the kickoff is with the banks on Friday. So certainly things to watch. I put on the watch list this morning that hotter than expected jobs report. It was a surprise, right? I mean, not a surprise, but it was a surprise how the market reacted. You would think with the hotter jobs report that would scale back the Fed's target for raising rates. You would think, especially with the comments that happened on Thursday, that would just be more ammo for them not to cut rates, at least sooner than expected, right? Pushing back, maybe no cuts this year, but the market held up, bounced, and then rallied, nearly recouping the losses from Thursday. I think Wednesday, it just kind of adds more importance to this inflation data. It almost means, to me, like their market's more focused on the inflation side than a strong economy side. So if we can have a strong economy and inflation continues to either flatline or go lower, that probably bodes well for more highs in the coming weeks. So big CPI read on Wednesday. And then the Fed minutes, depending on how the CPI data goes, you want to see what tone or was the last Fed meeting, if it switched to a lot more hawkish, things like that. So certainly some things to watch. Again, that 518.40 handle, I put it as support resistance last week, came up, tested it, then Thursday broke through it, and then Friday we closed right at it. 518.43, I think, was the close on Friday. So definitely a key spot there, 512.50 if we get some selling pressure today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And then above that, the 524.50 handle. So those are spots I'm watching on the SPY. Excuse me. So quickly, I'll talk about STZ, and they report earnings Thursday before the open. I'll probably look to close most, if not all, of my calls before the report. So I added some this morning, almost as a premium build. So the implied move is small. I think it's 3.7%, 3.78% right now. Typically, STZ doesn't have large outsized moves after earnings. The last couple earnings reported closed up 2%, down 3%, down 0.29%, up 1.4%, and then down 9.7%. That was back in January 2023. So you start looking at the historicals there, and it doesn't really have large moves after earnings, hence the small implied move on the options right now. So I think some of it I look at, and I think there could be an opportunity just for the premium build into earnings Thursday. So between today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, if the stock just melts a little bit higher, I think the premium is going to start to creep in. And then hopefully, if I can get out some for 100% and cover costs, I'll ride some into the report, hoping for a surprise beat and raise and the stock heading to 280, 290. The other thing is it's setting up for another tight Bollinger Band setup, similar to Spotify and DELL. So not saying we're going to have deja vu here, but certainly looks interesting. You have momentum indicators look like they're reversing to a bullish trend. So things I'll be watching over the next day or two. I'll put on the watch list tomorrow after we see how things go today. But I think it heads over 270 by later today or tomorrow, and then hopefully the premiums start creeping in and I can get some out to cover costs. And if I can't, I'll probably just close them all and revisit come Thursday after the open. So that's STZ. DELL. If you saw my tweets over the weekend on DELL, the more I dig into it, the more I've traded DELL back. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. I like DELL just as a reversal name because it's been around forever. So it's a boring name. I guess you would call it a value name. But they had a huge amount of debt. They had issues in regards to growth, competitive concerns, things like that. But it seems like they've turned the corner. They've cut back expenses. Their earnings have been growing for the last 4 years. The EPS, I think, is a 12% annual compound annual growth rate just on their EPS, despite almost flattish revenues over the last couple of years. But it looks like that's going to change. The AI boom, NVIDIA CEO came on their GTC conference, the big presentation they had in March, and actually called out DELL. Then there was a press release after the close that DELL came out where the CEO of NVIDIA again was saying how great DELL is and how important they are for going forward in the AI revolution. And I think this just bodes well. Also, you take a look at what they've done, returned shareholder value back via dividends and stock buybacks. I think it's over $1 billion in the last, let's see, I think I had it up here. I think it's $7 billion over the last 8 quarters, something like that. And then paying down their debt. So they had $31 billion in debt back in 2020. Now they have $15 billion in debt. So when you look at some of these companies that have a lot of debt, sometimes that's the headwind. And that's why when you look at the valuation, it trades 1 times revenues. It does $88 billion in revenues, and it's a $94 billion market cap. I'm not saying it's going to pull an SMCI or some of these other smaller names that have really taken off in the chip space, but I do think there's an opportunity for folks to realize, hey, DELL looks like it's positioned for further growth. Maybe it gets to 150, 160 in the coming weeks and months, if not higher if there's some FOMO. But today you look, it's got caught up. You look at SMCI, NVIDIA, they all faded right off the open. Pretty much the same thing that DELL did. I mean, DELL did this last Tuesday down to 115. It did it on Thursday. It hit 136, dropped all the way down to 127, I think it closed at. Hit 123 on Friday. So just some churn here, I think, before the next leg. It's going to be bumpy. I said that on the watch this morning and on my week ahead webinar. So I'm not going to sit there and pull the ripcord when it sells off here because it's down 4% with the rest of the other stocks. I'm not going to add anything here yet, but I think it's going to be bumpy and continue to be bumpy. So tomorrow I'll wake up, it could be 140. But that's kind of the thought process there on DELL. I think it's going to take some time to churn through this, considering where it was the last week. I think it was up 16% last week on no news, no catalyst. So to me, that speaks volumes for the sentiment out there, and I think people can continue to look for opportunities to add that one. I think it's going to head higher. So that's DELL. My little rant on DELL. Intuitivesurgical, disappointing. I ended those calls on Friday, got near to a double, sold off at the end of the day, came back flat, and now they just got punished at the open. No news or catalyst to speak of in Intuitivesurgical. I thought the buyout of the news between Johnson & Johnson and Shockwave, a $13 billion acquisition on Friday would add some premium to the medtech sector. It looked like it towards the end of the day, too. Intuitivesurgical, Edward Sciences were rallying, and then you just see it today. It just melted lower at the open, all the way down to 383, and it's sitting here at 385. I mean, it's down less than 1%, but I thought there would be some continuation. Still like it to trade up into the 400s. Not going to add anything just yet. Talk another 2% day tomorrow, a 2% day Wednesday, and the calls will be more than fine. You also another price target upgrade. Stifel Nicholas, however you pronounce it, upgraded their price target to 430 from 420. Last week it was Citi, and Citi upgraded their price target to 462 from 428, and the stock sold off that day. So maybe it's not reacting well to analysts. I don't know. But disappointing, but I'm still bullish on Intuitivesurgical. I'll continue to hold the strikes there. Not sure I'll add anything more on that. AVAV, so and I didn't even change the chart up here. But you take a look at AVAV, another tight setup. Huge earnings all the way up into the 180s. It used to have a high short interest. Let me see what short interest is now. This is, I wouldn't call it a war play, right? I hate to, blood money, right? When you trade stocks and try and make money on names that make equipment that don't do good things to people, right? They call that blood money, I guess. But AVAV makes drones, huge orders already, back ordered U.S. for Ukraine's and all the other European countries have placed some orders. They have a huge backlog. Used to have a big short interest. The short interest is only down to 3%, which meaning the shorts have probably thrown in the towel. And you look at that setup, I'm like, wow, this could probably get back into the 160s in the next week or two. April 19s look interesting, maybe to 165. So depending on what the market does, I don't want to be in too many calls just because of Wednesday. So AVAV may take a couple days to play out, and if that's the case, I don't want to be holding stars, AV, and all these other names that DELL, all these other names that I've been adding, because if we do get a pull on Wednesday, probably is not going to be pretty. So I'll just probably sit on my hands on that, but definitely when I'm watching, if it really starts to break out, maybe I'll add some strikes there. But a great story. Yeah, I mean, I've been waiting for so long for this to break out. I think I traded up to 130, and then I just it had a bad report last year, and then it sold off, and then it was kind of churning around, and then it had a phenomenal earnings report in March and just took off. So definitely a name I'll be watching. I keep posting a chart there. At some point, maybe I'll look to get some strikes on those, but I'll probably wait till Wednesday after the open, after the CPI numbers, and go from there. Not much to say here on the pot names. ACB, CGC were on at lows at the open, reversed, went into highs, both were green. Then CGC reverse course 1085 all the way down to 980, so a dollar reversal in about 30 minutes, and now it's chopping around. ACB is actually in the green right now. CGC is almost in the green. I'll take green closes these days on these names because they're so volatile, and I think the longer those chops resolve into green closes, the higher the probability those are. Like I said on the watch list, ACB to $10 at least in the coming weeks, CGC to 17, 18 in the coming weeks, and I have to find the exact stake that Constellation Brands has in CGC, but it's a large stake. So not sure what that means on Thursday, but just more fuel to the bullish fire for CGC. IIPR was looking great this morning. Disappointing. I keep looking for May strikes. Ran up in the morning, then sold off down to 102, and now it's right here at high. So hopefully this finally is the start to the move to the upside on IIPR. I think it heads over 110 in the coming week or two. At some point, I'll look to add some May strikes, but again, I don't want to be adding too much ahead Wednesday, so I'll probably just stand pat on that. GLP-1 names, I didn't even put those on the week ahead webinar because it's kind of like a broken record here. Still think at some point there's going to be a weekend where wake up Monday morning or Sunday and there's going to be a buyout news either on Vikings or some of these other smaller names. But Turn was looking great at the open, all the way up to I think at 575 or so, and then gave back all those gains. It's pretty much flat now. GPCR was green. Yeah, it's still green, but I mean, it's up barely 1%. And VKTX, which was up and down last week, is back down here at $74. At some point, I'll look for some May strikes, but I'll probably just wait for April expirations or get closer next week at some point. Maybe I'll look for some more strikes on VKTX, just because at some point, again, I think there's going to be M&A. And even if it's not VKTX, it's going to add premium to VKTX. I think that's it. The other thing, there was an acquisition. A bank, someone was acquired. It was a REIT, real estate REIT, right? Small apartments, something like that. So it's funny how it works. Then SRS is down over 1%. I talk about SRS only because of IIPR. And then here's IIPR, nearly $103. So I think some of the move that we saw on IIPR to the downside at the start of last week and the previous week was because of the REIT selling off. And now that there's a little reversal here, you have the M&A, you can see I think IIPR has a shot maybe at 110 this week. So hopefully that happens. We'll see. TLRY reports earnings tomorrow morning. They've, so I was bullish the name when they acquired I think 8 IPA brands from Anheuser-Busch. And I think that's bullish because what that does, it gives them distribution for cannabis, right? So not only will they have distribution for the beer, because beer distribution, it's a big deal, right? You don't just get a van and deliver IPAs to the local beverage center or the supermarket. There's so many things that go into it, getting space in the stores, talking people, salespeople going out getting space, and then distribution deals, right? So if everybody's going to this beverage place, not only is Budweiser going to go to the beverage place, they're going to have other brands with them as part of a deal, a distribution deal, right? So because Tilray acquired these brands, they have distribution now outside of the beer as well. So I think it was smart by them, instead of sitting on their hands until cannabis gets legalized across the country and across Europe, they went and started to get scale and distribution so that when this cannabis does get legalized across the U.S., on the federal level that they have the means to be able to distribute product, right? So that's some of it. But they have come away, step back a little bit from the cannabis side. So last quarter, their revenues increased, but a lot of that was derived from their brands. So IPA and beer brands, which I think is smart. And then you can have cannabis infused beer, right? So we'll see how that plays out. But I think if it's a bullish spin, they talk a little bit about the legalization with Germany and things like that, the Florida situation. I think that just is going to continue to rise all the cannabis names. It's, rising tide raises all cannabis names. So I think that'll bode well for those names. So we'll see how it all plays out tomorrow. I keep getting asked about TLRY. Again, I've said this many times. I like the name. I love what they're doing. It's just there's situation with the short that came in. Nice little piece around how some shady shenanigans. So those are kind of things I try to stay away from. So I like to do the cleaner play, CGC, ACB, so on and so forth. I think that's about it. WW was going this morning, almost up to $2. At some point, that's going to go. Trying to think of some other names. Oh, CDLX. So no new updates. I keep checking the Form 4 filings for Clifford Sozen because at some point he's going to have acquired more shares. It's just churning water here in the high 13s. Got to open up, rallied right up into the almost 1450 handle. Came back. Once it breaks 15, I'll look for some A strikes. Still bullish the name, bullish the story. I think it heads higher in the coming months. I think that's it. Oh, and the triple-headed monster. So the yields, oil, US dollar, looking pretty good today. Yields were a little iffy. They've come back in. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean they're off the highs of the day, so that's a good thing. Oil's down, US dollar's down, so they're all not rising in tandem, which I think is kind of why we see this chop in the S&P. And hopefully that trend continues. I said that on a week ahead webinar. I don't want to see the triple-headed monster come rearing its head come Wednesday because then I think things will get dicey. And so that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. We got about 3 hours, 15 minutes. Hopefully we eclipse the highs. And if you're in the eclipse zone, make sure you're wearing your glasses. Make sure your kids don't look at the sun. That's it. Have a great day, folks. Rock and roll.